Good morning. Welcome back to Football League World TV. It's the start of another week, which means it's time for the weekend review show. I'm your host this morning, George Dagless, and joining me are Marcus Ali and Adam Jones. Marcus, how are you this morning?
Yeah, really well. Thanks, George. It's all starting to feel real now in the EFL. All these consequences that we've been talking about all season are coming to fruition, obviously having the first relegation as well, which I'm sure we'll get onto. But no, yeah, delighted to be on talking about this part of the season, which is going to be very exciting.
Good stuff. Yeah, firmly in the business end now, aren't we? Adam, how are you this morning?
Yeah, not bad, thank you. I'm taking a particular look really at the League Two playoff race. It's just getting absolutely ridiculous with how tight it is up there. But yeah, I'm excited to get into this one, mainly because of that, but also because of some very good other kind of EFL fixtures last weekend.
Yeah, plenty of results to talk about in the next 25 or so minutes. We are live across Facebook, YouTube and Twitter. EFL fans, let us know where you were at a game over the weekend. What did you make of the result for your team and where it leaves you for the final weeks of the season? Let's get started, though, as ever, with the Championship. We'll start with Nottingham Forest's 2-0 win over Birmingham City. Marcus, the Reds continue to fly in the Championship. They've got all the momentum at the moment. The question I want to ask first of all, though, is can you see them breaking into the top two? They're now just 6 points off of Bournemouth, with Bournemouth drawing at Sheffield United, which we'll get to in a little bit. The form's all with Forest at the moment, and they've still got to play each other as well, these two sides, later on in the season. So could the top two be on for the men from the City Ground?
I definitely think it's on, yeah. Probably more so due to the way that Bournemouth are playing than Forest, to be honest. But yeah, I definitely think it's on. I think that 6 point cushion will definitely shrink between now and the end of the season. Whether it'll be enough to see them make that leap into second remains to be seen. But I can definitely see it getting a bit more exciting and Forest keeping that outside chance going into the final few weeks. They weren't really at their best here. I think that 2-0 win over Birmingham, great goal from Keenan Davis. To open the scoring. What an incredible signing he's been. I was definitely someone that sort of turned my nose up at his goal record maybe when they signed him in January on loan, but he's just made an unbelievable impact. Just proves that the contacts and the nous at Forest at the moment, such an excellent addition. We've completely sort of forgot that Lewis Grabban's been out injured and is slowly returning, but him being absent for so long before January, you would have worried for them. But Davis has come in and filled that role, and it's probably even improved on Grabban's performances in the first half of the season. Yeah, they weren't at their best here, but they got the job done, and that's all that matters, really. It's 5 wins in a row now, unbeaten in 10. We all know they're going to be extremely dangerous when they play at the City Ground in particular. So, no, I think it's going to be very exciting to see if they can hunt down Bournemouth, who will certainly be worryingly looking over their shoulders at this point.
Adam, how do you assess it at the moment? Just 6 points now between Forest and Bournemouth. Are you backing the Reds to break into the top two by the end of the campaign, or do you think the Cherries could hold on to
it? You know what? I mean, obviously we're going to go on to this in the next game, but I thought the away draw actually at Sheffield United was a very good result actually for Scott Parker's men. But in terms of Forest, they seem to have kind of all the momentum really on their side, and I think they're playing much better at the moment. You know, they may not have been at their best at the weekend, but they're playing much better at the moment than Bournemouth are. So yeah, for me, they've definitely got the ingredients there and the feel good factor under Steve Cooper to kind of make that charge really. And I think in terms of Forest, they're kind of under, I think, a little bit less pressure to break into the top two. Obviously, they were down at the bottom anyway after 7 or 8 games. So yeah, they were never expected to be in the top 6, let alone the top 2. So that kind of lack of pressure there, maybe, and lack of expectation. Compared to a Bournemouth side that will obviously be hoping to get back to the Premier League at the second time of asking, and were probably disappointed not to at the first time of asking last season. So the mental kind of factor comes into that, and I think that'll work in Forest's favour, and I can definitely see it being even more interesting than it already is between now and the end of the season.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the way Forest are going at the moment, you wouldn't rule them out from achieving anything at this stage, apart from obviously winning the title. But, they're looking really good. As for Birmingham, just quickly, Marcus, before we move away from this game, I guess for them it's, kind of going through the motions, isn't it, for the rest of the season? Lee Bow, you obviously want to see performances and results between now and the end of the campaign, but I guess it's hard to try and stay motivated, given that they don't really have much to play for now, do they?
Yeah, I mean, the impressive start they made to the season has really propped them up for the remainder of the campaign. To be honest, they have been on a downward spiral for quite a long time. You look at the way they're going recruitment-wise. Bowie's had no money to spend. A lot of their key players are loan players that probably won't be there next season. So it is starting to look pretty worrying for the Blues, to be honest. Along with maybe Bristol City and Reading, I am concerned about them next season if they do stay up as is expected. I did a little bit of digging on Birmingham's form and just how much that start of the season has helped them maintain their championship status this season. And looking beyond the first 16 games of the season, so the second sort of 2/3 of the campaign, only Barnsley and Peterborough have picked up fewer points than Birmingham City. I think that tells a story in itself of how Bowie's men have slipped down the table and where they could potentially be competing next season, of course, if with Barnsley and Peterborough expected to be going down to League One. So, yeah, something needs to be done. I'm not sure it will be done due to the way they're operating off the pitch at the moment. But yeah, Bowyer does need to try and generate some positivity going into next season because I think it will be tough for them.
And of course, Birmingham helped out as well a little bit, haven't they, by the points deductions that both Reading and Derby received earlier on in season two. In terms of that result, that leaves Birmingham in 18th in the Championship table. Forest sitting in third, closing the gap to the top two now, just 6 points off of Bournemouth, who we'll get to now. An away draw for the Cherries at Bramall Lane against Sheffield United. Adam, we'll come to you first of all because you've kind of sort of hinted at it already. You think it was a good point for Bournemouth? In many respects, I guess it has to be considered that, doesn't it? I guess the only way you're going to be a little bit concerned is the fact that Forest are in such great form, and that's why the gaps are what it is now.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was daylight robbery to us. I'm surprised that Scott Parker wasn't arrested because seriously, some of the chances that Sheffield United had, missed some golden opportunities to get themselves in front, and that's the only reason really why I think it's kind of really such a good point away from home. If they were dominating, then I think I'd give a different angle on it and say, well, a win perhaps would have boosted their automatic promotion hopes further, but. That single point could be, the difference really between, now and the end of the season. Obviously with the January recruits that they've got as well, they should have more than enough depth really to get themselves back to the Premier League via automatic promotion. But it's they weren't at their very best, and perhaps rode their luck at times really at Bramall Lane. And obviously it wasn't the perhaps say the kindest fixture. But still, they've got to try and get as many points as they can because they've got quite a difficult run in as well. And obviously, with Nottingham Forest kind of entering themselves in the race, I think it's I think that was a vital point to pick up, and I don't think that Bournemouth fans should be too damn beat about it, to be honest.
Having said that, Marcus, I think Cherries fans will be a little bit worried about their ability to suddenly throw dips in their form. They started the season so brilliant, didn't they? Went on a huge unbeaten run. In times since, we've obviously seen them lose ground to Fulham in particular with their tendency to fall off the wagon a little bit. But there's surely a risk and a worry about that at the most important time of the season.
Yeah, definitely. They're in a similar situation to my previous point about Birmingham, to be honest. I looked back at the table on who scored. You can customise the dates to build a better picture of what we've seen since, which I think is quite good looking into this. And Bournemouth over the last 22 games, so that's almost half a season, after they went on that little blip after losing at Derby, actually ranked 12th in the Championship over almost half a season of games. So that just shows where they've dropped off. They might end up holding on to second place, but I don't hold a lot of hope for them in the Premier League if they do, to be honest. Obviously, there's a chance that they can improve their squad a lot in the summer, but yeah, I am quite worried. I completely agree with Adam. Blaze were much the better team in this game. Travers was by far Bournemouth's best player. Lloyd Kelly pinged one off his own crossbar in the first half. Gibbs White had chances. There was a stonewall penalty towards in the closing exchanges. Nat Phillips just boots Gibbs White. The referee's in a great position and waves it away. It was really sort of surprising, to be honest. And then in sort of classic passage of Championship football, Juremovic has blood gushing from his nose after a blow seconds before, and then it falls to him with the best chance Sheffield United have had in the whole match. He managed to sort of scuff his volley wide in the end with blood gushing down his top. But yeah, it was a good performance from Blaze, and yeah, really concerning, to be honest, from Bournemouth. I think the way they've been playing, that 6-point cushion at this stage of the season should feel massive. But the way that they've been playing, it feels like a sort of 2 or 3 point cushion in reality. And of course, all sort of building towards that massive game, 2 games from the end of the season against Forest. If Forest can potentially cut the gap to sort of 3 points or something like that to keep it interesting for that matchup, then I think the Cherries are going to get very nervous. It was another worrying display, to be honest. They were lucky to get away and take a point.
Yeah, it really could be winners it takes all, couldn't it? When Bournemouth and Forest meet just before the end of the season. That result leaves Bournemouth in second, then 73 points, just 6 points clear of Forest, as we mentioned. Sheffield United inside the playoff places. They'll obviously think as though they perhaps should have got a win at the weekend, but the draw keeps them inside the top 6, sitting in 6th place. One final game to talk about in the Championship. That's Millwall's 4-1 victory over Barnsley. Adam, this keeps Millwall's playoff hopes alive, gets them back on track a little bit as well, isn't it? Because they wobbled themselves in recent weeks. And I think you look at the teams above them; quite a few of them dropped points over the weekend. So a really important win for Gary Rowett's team.
Yeah, 100%. And this is the type of performance that I've wanted from them all season, really. Obviously, we know that they're quite a formidable force kind of defensively, obviously, with the likes of Jake Cooper and Murray Wallace. And just having that reliability at the back has been absolutely vital for them in this race. But for them to put in such a great attacking display, it was kind of the perfect afternoon for them, really. I mean, in terms of, Jeff Wallace was instrumental again in a couple of the goals. Obviously Afobe now is in double figures, and it's going to be, a bit of a shame really that both of them are likely to go at the end of the season. Obviously, Afobe returning to Stoke, and that's going to be, quite a considerable blow for them, and they're going to have to replace both of them because they've scored quite a chunk really of their goals this season. But as I said earlier, it's just the performance that I've really wanted from them kind of this season, just being clinical really going forward. And they were helped to an extent. Obviously, Barnsley had a couple of early chances that they should have tucked away, but in the end, that's the difference really between a side kind of fighting in the top half and those kind of in a relegation battle is that Millwall took those chances and they were absolutely prolific really. And especially pleased obviously for McNamara as well. Obviously you can question the Barnsley defending in terms of that, but he had to be in the right place at the right time and has kind of established himself as a real attacking threat. So Gary Rowett will be very pleased, and obviously with the results as you mentioned, he'll be especially pleased with that going into the final few games. And obviously it gives them quite a bit of momentum as well. They won't exactly be expected, perhaps not favourites to be in the top 6, but in the end that may work in their favour, like it has kind of with Forest.
As for Barnsley, Marcus, time ticking down now for them, isn't it? I guess they're the only team maybe you can still kind of make a case for getting out of the drop zone at the moment, the Championship, with that game in hand. But even so, they haven't got many matches now to try and turn it around.
Yeah, I think Reading getting pegged back by Cardiff to lose 2-1 is kind of a lifeline to Barnsley. But yeah, I think they've got 5 games left to play. It's going to be very difficult, 8-point gap to make up. Their sort of resurgence this season has come through their home form, so maybe it wasn't a surprise to see them capitulate a little bit on the road. There's been a lot of good to hear sort of fighting talk from Poya Asbaghi in the last few weeks. He clearly is sort of galvanising the fans back behind the team, and we have seen them increase their performance levels significantly in the last couple of months. But yeah, I don't think it's going to be enough. Maybe they could make it interesting, but I think it would take a considerable drop off from Reading to make that possible. That they're going to have to win sort of 4 of their last 5 matches at least. So yeah, it's going to be really tough. Particularly, with the manner that they lost this match, although Millwall did play well, it has to be said.
Yeah, certainly. Barnsley struggling, currently sitting 22nd now in the Championship. Millwall just outside the top 6, 4 points outside the top 6, so still got playoff hopes themselves. That's it for the Championship on the Weekend Review Show. Up next, we're talking League One. And we'll start with Oxford's 2-1 defeat at home to Sunderland. Adam, Oxford had 20 shots in this game, and we know how good they are going forwards. They've shown that so much this season, but their form has tailed off at the most important time of the year. They haven't won in 4 games. 3 of those have been losses, and they've lost to another playoff rival at the weekend. How do you assess their chances now in terms of getting into the top 6?
It's going to be difficult. I think this one's, this result in particular was a massive kind of sucker blow for them. I think, the reaction of the supporters as well to the goals, it just, really shows the frustration, really. But I don't think they could really legislate really for Patterson's performance in between the sticks. He was absolutely superb, making some miraculous saves. So in one aspect, I feel very kind of sorry for them. Obviously, they were going to face an uphill battle anyway in terms of getting into the top six because of how much the likes of Sheffield Wednesday and Ipswich have strengthened, and obviously with the recently relegated teams coming down as well. It's they always face quite an uphill battle to get into the top six, but it's going to be very difficult for them now. And you just have to feel sorry for them really at the moment. Obviously, I think they'll be quite disappointed with the manner in which they conceded the goals. I think especially the first one as well. I think the second one, sometimes it just happens really. I mean, it was just, I think that the second Sunderland goal was just like typical Alex Neil, really, just unflappable. And I think that his team were as well were just really cool and composed in getting that winner. Obviously that you've got to give credit to the Black Cats as well for remaining composed and for remaining calm under pressure. I think that's really important for them.
As for Sunderland, Marcus, they're a team that appear to be clicking now under Alex Neil. It's looking really good for them. Obviously, the top two is pretty much out of the question, isn't it? But all about having momentum into the playoffs. Obviously, they still need to ensure they've got themselves a top six spot, but you probably back them at the moment, you especially going away to a team like Oxford, who, yes, they've been out of form recently, but we know how good they are, particularly attacking wise. And they've got big 3 points there.
Yeah, absolutely enormous result in the push for the playoffs. They've got a 4-point cushion on Oxford now in sixth, and they've played one game fewer, so that's pretty comfortable. Wickham, they've still got to worry about. I think they're just 1 point behind, or maybe on the same points in seventh place. But I think the fixture list has been kind to Gareth Ainsworth's men in the last few weeks. I think that's why they've been able to punch themselves back into contention. So yeah, Alex Neil deserves huge credit for this result, and maybe Sunderland can feel a little bit more confident or relaxed going into the playoffs, knowing that they've got a very experienced manager in Alex Neil that's been there and done it all before, of course, taking Norwich back to the Prem in the playoffs. And it's done a really good job, to be honest. There was some tricky points at the start of his reign, but he's really shored them up defensively. And I would certainly fancy them to finish inside the playoffs. Jay Matete was influential in this match. I thought, what a signing he's been from Fleetwood. And it was a big call for Alex Neil to drop Dan Neil out of the side. Who, of course, performed so well for him in the first half of the season. He hasn't gone with Matete week in, week out, but has gone with him more consistently than he has done Dan Neil, and that's really starting to reap the rewards. I think Elliot Embleton's late winner, who's a bit of a nemesis for Oxford, came up against them for Blackpool in the playoffs last season, which really comfortable semi-final win for the Tangerines. That was such a well-worked goal. They were sort of on the edge of their box and worked it really nicely across to find Embleton at the back post. So, plenty of positives for Sunderland. That really is a huge result. I think Oxford are probably going to have to win all of their last four if they are to break in now. They've got Fleetwood away, MK Dons at home, Rotherham away and Doncaster at home. So 2 games they should win and 2 games that you don't really know, to be honest. It depends what MK or Rotherham turn up, but it's a real uphill battle now for Carl Robinson's side, but a huge result for Sunderland, and one will definitely build a lot of confidence in the North East.
Yeah, big result for both sides in the context of the top 6 race. Sunderland sitting 6th inside the playoff place at the moment. Oxford just outside, 4 points off of Sunderland in 6th. In fact, they're sitting in 8th. One final game to talk about in League One, and that's Doncaster's 2-0 victory over Crewe Alexandra. Adam, Doncaster just doing enough to keep their survival hopes intact. A much needed win for them. They're still obviously 5 points off of safety though, so they just need to try and use this and build momentum.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, there's a part of me that thinks that Crewe kind of gifted them the win anyway. I think there was quite an error early on really from Crewe, and that was a massive red flag for the visitors straight away. And obviously, Doncaster couldn't spell that out, and they capitalised on mistakes. And you could say that Crewe, basically gifted them the win through the individual mistakes. But Doncaster had to be there to pounce and there to capitalise, and they did. And they had some reasonably kind of bright attacking play as well. Obviously, questions still remain, I think, in defence. There's a couple of opportunities that that they'd probably want to cut out. But in terms of Doncaster, that 3 points really is the most important thing, really. Nothing else really matters at this moment in time. Perhaps barring goal difference, I think that's the only stat really that matters at the moment, and the fact that they did manage to get over the line. It is a credit to them, because this could have been a very tricky game. Obviously, with Crewe desperate as well, or were desperate, shall we say? It was a good win, and obviously they'll be their confidence will be boosted by clean sheet as well.
Yeah, certainly will be. As for Crewe, Marcus, first team in the EFL to suffer relegation this season. I guess it's been on the cards for a long time, hasn't it? Their form's been pretty poor all year, and many were expecting them to go down. It's been confirmed now. What do you make of the sort of rebuild job that needs to be done over the summer for the Railwaymen?
Well, it's going to be really difficult, I think. 15 losses in their last 16. That's something that's going to be really hard to shift in terms of the mentality. Obviously, we know the way that Crewe like to operate. They're going to give youngsters a chance in terms of a rebuild. Tom Lowry and Mika Manjon are out of contract in the summer. I wouldn't expect either of them to stay. Rio Adebisi as well has been one of their more impressive younger players, a left back this season. So in terms of a rebuild, I can't see them going out and splashing the cash. I think it'd be a case of looking at the best players from the under-18s and the under-23s to come and fill that, along with some other additions. But I don't think they'll have one of the top budgets in League Two at all. So it's going to be very difficult. I do worry for them, to be honest. I think even with their current squad, they'd be in the bottom half of League Two this season. I think that's being quite kind, to be honest. So yeah, it's going to be really difficult. I think I do lean towards hoping that they stick with David Artell. It's a terrible run, but he's so passionate about that club, and he knows the way it's going to be run, which I'm not sure would be as easy to sell to other managers. And obviously, he got them promoted from League Two last time and achieved a mid-table finish last season, so he does have that credit in the bank. But yeah, in terms of a rebuild, it's going to be really difficult. I can't see them at all bouncing straight back with promotion. I think maybe similar to Rochdale. This season, they're sort of in the bottom six in League Two. It's going to be really difficult. But yeah, the writing's been on the wall, so maybe confirmation of relegation will be a little bit of a weight off the shoulders around the club, and hopefully they can get some more positive performances between now and the end of the season. But yeah, it's going to be difficult. But potentially, that confirmation and acceptance could see a small upturn in performances.
Okay, yeah, we'll see what happens with Crewe over the summer, but they will be playing League Two football next season. They're sitting in 24th, as to be expected. And Doncaster sitting 23. Got a slight glimmer of hope still to try and achieve survival in the third tier. Two games to talk about in League Two. We'll start with Colchester's defeat at home to Stevenage. A 2-0 victory for Stevenage, Adam. It gives them a huge boost, doesn't it, in their own relegation fight?
Yeah, 100%. I think, again, Crewe, really, I think in terms of Colchester, they gifted Stevenage the win, really. Obviously, switched off for the first goal. But then again, it was a massive boost, really, in stoppage time, really, of the first half. Gave them a real turning point, really, in the game, and a vital point in terms of them getting the 3 points. And looking at where they are now, obviously in 23rd, that could be absolutely crucial, really, at the end of the season. So fair play to them for keep plugging away. Obviously, it wasn't the prettiest goal, the first goal, and neither's the second one, really. But they got themselves in the right place at the right time. Obviously, for the second goal, they broke the offside trap, and it was quite an intelligent little finish, really. I think the only real downfall, or the only real bad point, is the fact that obviously Norris was sent off, and I think that was quite unnecessary, really. I don't think he had to dive into that challenge, but still, it's a good 3 points for them, and that it could prove to be kind of the difference at the end of the season. So they'll be satisfied with their work, especially away at a side that I think it would have been, a home favourite, really, in terms of, if you want to have a bet. So, they were kind of fighting against the odds, and they come out on top, and they recorded a clean sheet in the process as well. So, you've got to commend them for that.
Yeah, certainly. I've had Stevenage just snap their losing streak, Marcus. I think they can build on it now. You look at the bottom four, let's say, in League Two. Obviously, we're going to assume that Scunthorpe are gone and then it's looking likely to be one from Barrow, Stevenage, and Oldham, isn't it? Stevenage got enough about them to pull away. It could just be the case that whoever wins 2 more games between now and the end of the season is going to be safe.
I think they do for sure. Yeah, they got the nicer running of the 3, I'd say, and probably in my book the best manager of the 3 as well. We've spoke a lot about the promotion race in League Two, but the bottom is looking just as interesting. 3 teams in 23rd, 22nd, and 21st, only separated by goal difference. So much more to play for with just 5 or 6 games left. I think Barrow have a game in hand on the other 2, but yeah, I definitely expect Stevenage to get out of this. It's so silly from Luke Norris to get sent off like that with the score and how crucial he's been to Stevenage this season. But I think they'll be able to cope. They've got some nicer fixtures coming up than Barrow in particular, and Oldham's is pretty tough as well. I definitely am expecting Stevenage to stay up, and yeah, what an enormous result, because Colchester have been putting off some decent results of late. So yeah, good to see them make the relegation battle a little bit more interesting. Yeah, I think it's a real coup to get Steve Evans in at this stage.
Yeah, certainly could be the difference. You would have thought maybe in the final weeks of the campaign. Like Colchester sitting 20th then on the back of that result. They probably won't be too worried now though about how their season's going to end. As for Stevenage, giving themselves a real chance of survival, sitting in 23rd, but level on points with Oldham and Barrow above them in the League Two table. So it's certainly going to be a fight to the death by the looks of things down at the bottom of the Football League. Finally, we'll talk Mansfield's 4-0 victory over Scunthorpe. Adam, Mansfield kind of just did what they needed to do really at the weekend, playing a Scunthorpe side that obviously is as good as relegated.
Yeah, I think you summed it up perfectly there. I don't think I could really add kind of too much, because obviously with the home side, it's just the off-field situation, obviously the on-field situation as well. Both of them are pretty kind of dire at the moment. Obviously, the feeling off the pitch was very much heard, I think, at the weekend. And yeah, they had to stay calm and they just had to do their job. And obviously we spoke about how tight kind of the playoff race and the promotion race is in the 4th tier. So this was a much more difficult fixture than some probably saw it on paper. But they were professional in what they did. Kept things reasonably tight at the back. Obviously, Scunthorpe didn't have too many clear-cut opportunities. And going forward, they were they could have even had one more really at the end when they broke on the counter attack, and that was probably one of their most impressive, if not their most impressive, attack of the game. So they just had a job to do, and they did it well. So they just got the job done, and that's it.
I think last week, Marcus, I think it was, I forget which show it was, but we were looking at the League Two promotion race, and we said that it is in Mansfield's hands getting into the top 3, but obviously they need to erode the goal difference disadvantage they've got compared to Port Vale. In some respects, that they've started chipping away at that, haven't they? 4-0 victory over Scunthorpe. Port Vale could only win by the odd goal against Oldham. It's obviously still a lot of work to do for the Stags, but they're going the right way about it.
Yeah, I think there is still quite a big difference in that goal difference situation, but with the game in hand, it would put a lot of pressure on Port Vale. Stags were so comfortable here. They're looking pretty good, to be honest. It might be tough to catch Port Vale. Obviously, Exeter getting a huge win at Carlisle as well late on. Reward for all those fans that made the long trip in the last minute, I think it was. Mansfield have got Salford away and Forest Green at home in their last 2 fixtures. Now, I expect FGR to be home and dry with the league title under their arm by then, but Salford away in particular could be really tough. They still do have a lot of work to do. Clough will be pleased at how sort of light work they made of Scunthorpe. I think Ryan Stirk getting his just his second league goal of the season, but he's been a really underrated performer for me for Mansfield, one of the better looking midfielders in League Two. Just 21 years old, on loan from Birmingham City and out of contract in the summer. So I could see him playing in League One at least next season, with or without Mansfield. And Stephen McLaughlin getting on the score sheet as well, his 5th goal of the season from left back, definitely giving Nicky Cadden a run for his money in terms of looking to get into that League Two team of the season. But no, it was really straightforward for Mansfield. And I do expect their sort of race for 3rd place, potentially with Port Vale, to go right down to the final day.
Certainly looks like so much to go down to the final day, particularly in League Two at the moment. Mansfield sitting in 4th then on the back of that result. Scunthorpe, as they have really for most this year, sitting in 24th in the 4th tier. That's it for the weekend review show on Football League World TV. There's one other programme coming up later on the channel. That's at 4 o'clock. Under the Microscope, Huddersfield Town versus Luton Town. Alfie Burns hosting that one. He's joined by Chris Gallagher. A big game for both sides coming up. Two playoff contenders in the Sky Bet Championship. Marcus and Adam, great to get your thoughts this morning on the weekend's action. Those that have been watching as well, thanks for joining us. Do remember to subscribe to Football League World TV on YouTube if you can. And do like this video as well. That'd be greatly appreciated by all of us here. But for myself, Marcus and Adam, it's bye for now.